this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm so glad you could be with us today. I hope you all are doing well, at least better, with the pandemic still going on, and things are getting better, looking up a little bit, but we still want to be safe out there. So we're still doing virtual Caregiver Solution Info Show, and I'm glad you could be here today. We have a really exciting show because, unfortunately, this past year, I have actually had the experience of meeting with people that haven't planned for their life, haven't planned for their future, haven't done any planning for how they're going to live or where they're going to be or who's going to take care of them. And it's really, really sad. And it is so important for us as just human beings to prep and plan for a life. And so we need to know what we don't know. And today we're going to tell you all about how to do that. It is very difficult being a caregiver. Now, this show is for caregivers, and it's for caregivers who are family caregivers who take care of people that can't really take care of themselves. We do have a focus on dementia, Alzheimer's, different types of dementia. But it really is for every type of caregiver, whether you're caring for someone with dementia, whether you're caring for a child with special needs, whether you're caring for an elderly adult, maybe they have more physical problems than cognitive problems, you're still a caregiver. And there are things that caregivers need to know, not only about how to care for the person that you're caring for, but also how to care for yourself. It's very important. So we touch on lots of different topics. We've been doing this for 6 years, and I have gotten so much great feedback from you all. And so thank you for being here today. Today we're going to be talking to an elder law attorney in his office about what an elder law attorney does, what that means. And it is very important for, again, all of us to plan. And as we get older, as our parents get older, you might be an adult child, and maybe you haven't really thought about when you get older because you have elderly parents, and you need to find out about what to do as they're aging. So it's really important, and we're going to be talking today to Spinks Law Firm. They are a wonderful group. I met them several months ago when I was over in the Tampa area. They actually serve over in Florida and specialize in Hillsborough and Pasco counties. And I'm so excited to have on with us today Ed and Tina Spinks. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background information, but let me just say hello to them right now. Hi, Tina. Hi, Ed. Thank you for being here today. Now, Ed is an elder law attorney, and a little bit about Ed because I'm going to brag on him a little bit. He is a graduate of the University of South Florida, Florida State University College of Law, and the United States Naval Justice School. He is admitted to practice law in the state courts of Florida and Hawaii, and he also is admitted to practice in the federal courts of the U.S. Armed Forces Court of Appeals and the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. And Tina, she is an awesome lady with lots of compassion and passion. I've met her several times in person. We've had many conversations. Tina is the Vice President of Client Services and Community Outreach for Spinks Law Firm. So this couple here, they do such wonderful work, and we're going to talk about that today. So Ed, thank you for being here. And the first thing that I want to say is thank you for your service, being a veteran. And also I know that you were a firefighter and you've had over 25 years in the military. So tell me how that experience with being a veteran has shaped in part your way of doing your business of law.
Oh, well, thanks for having us both. We enjoy being here and doing this type of stuff together and really just helping people. Yeah, and like you said, my service time was quite lengthy. I was 25 years in service, and so that really had everything to do with how I practice law today. Just a little bit of history. When I went in, I didn't go in as an attorney. I was 17 years old, right out of high school, like a lot of people. So it took me a while to, find my niche, so to speak. But fortunately, the military has a way of telling you what to do and when to do it. So I didn't have any problem, following directions. I guess was my big skill early on in life. I could listen to somebody and just do what I was told. So that served me well. And then after I got off active duty, initially, I think that was probably about 92 or 93. I worked for the fire department over in Polk County for a little bit and went to school at University of South Florida. And that's really where I really kind of found my niche. I was going to go back in the military in the officer program. I was kind of committed to that. But a lot of my peers were looking at law schools and different opportunities. And I thought, what a great way for me to continue my education and also be able to serve as a attorney for the military. So I was fortunate enough to get commissioned and be able to get dropped into the reserves to attend law school at Florida State. Excuse me. And then in 2000, I graduated, got admitted to the Florida bar, and began practicing as an attorney for the Marines. And that's really where my first stint in elder law started. Because when I first worked, one of my first assignments was at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, when the Marines were deploying overseas to Europe. It was probably, Marines that were deploying to Bosnia or somewhere in that region there. But we had to do a ton of estate planning, hundreds of wills and powers of attorney, and they're just, unbelievable numbers. And so we were just grinding them out, and so I really got, inundated with it then, and then kind of got to see the range of how that can help from, the youngest Marines that are, wanting everything to go back to mom and dad and make sure their stuff is taken care of in that manner, to the more senior Marines and sailors who, their family might have a business that needs to be taken care of, and they need some things held in trust, or they got children with different varying needs, and you got to make sure the children are taken care of if, God forbid, something was to happen to them while they were overseas. And so that was really my first experience, and fortunately for the time in the Marine Corps, I got to work in a lot of areas, and I was able to circle back now to focus on elder law and estate planning.
Well, I think that's great, you being a veteran yourself, and now you're helping other veterans with their needs as they get older, because there are certain benefits that veterans can tap into. And why don't you let us know some of the major ones that maybe people aren't aware of, or maybe they should be checking out if someone is a veteran and they need some type of financial help for their living. What can they do about that?
Sure. And so I've worked a lot with VA compensation. I'm a certified, accredited VA attorney. And it's interesting, they didn't really have that until 2007. So my timeliness of getting that, I probably got it pretty early on. I might even got accredited in 2007. So I've worked with veterans and their families for quite some time. The breakdown on veteran benefits is it's important to know there's two sides of veteran benefits. There's the side the VA calls compensation, and then there's the other side that they call pension. Now, from an elder law perspective, we normally work a lot with pension, but I want to take just a minute to explain the difference because it gets a little confusing. So a lot of veterans, when they get discharged, they're first looking at compensation. Compensation, kind of like a workers' comp type thing, where if they got some injury in service, like shrapnel to the knee or fell off a truck, or even if it aggravated a pre-existing condition. For some of the older veterans that are, getting out after, 10 or 15 years, if it increased their high blood pressure or had some adverse effect on some medical conditions, those can all come under the umbrella of compensation. And so that's where you hear about the VA saying the person's 10% disabled, 50%, 90%. A lot of those claims, just kind of thinking what you hear in the news, like veterans have PTSD and they're getting treated and they got a percentage. All that stuff you hear about is under the compensation package. And so what happens is veterans initially get out and maybe they don't have any injuries or anything from service. So they've done their 4 years and they get out and say, I don't have any claims. So in their mind, they think, I don't have any compensation claims, so I have no VA claims. But the other side of the coin is what veterans and their families often forget about, is this pension side. Now, that's benefits that kick in generally after they turn 65, and it can be sooner, but in the general terms, after they're 65, and that can be used to assist with help in an assisted living facility, a nursing home, or even when the veteran needs help at home. The main program I'm talking about is VA aid and attendance, and it kind of is just what it says. If the veteran needs aid and attendance or assistance of another person in their daily activities, that's what that program's for. So while that veteran might have been, 1972 and got out in 76 with no disability, it doesn't mean now, well, if I did the math right, they were 65 or whatever, that they don't qualify for aid and assistance. They just kind of forget those benefits are out there. And that's where I find the biggest help can be to veterans is some of these plans that they didn't think about or they didn't need early on in life because they were young. But, now they might need more assistance later in life. And it's out there. And it's just unfortunate that it's not always talked about. And sometimes the veterans just forget about it or don't know about it. So it's a real, joy to be able to tell them, hey, there is some help out there, because it actually pays the veteran money to help with this aid and assistance. It helps offset those medical bills and helps bring the family in. Now, one thing I should say, a caveat difference between pension, VA pension that we talked about, like aid and assistance, and VA compensation. Compensation has no basis on what income or assets the veteran has. So the veteran can work a full-time job and still have a disability and receive money directly to the veteran on the compensation side. On the pension side, it's not the same. The VA takes into account the veteran's assets, their income, be it Social Security, some other pension, or what they're doing. So that's where the planning aspect is very important to make sure the VA rules are followed and those amounts are calculated properly.
And is that what you do as a firm? You can help people figure that out and help them know what to apply for and if they qualify?
Sure, that's part of what we do. We do a good amount of trust planning. So, it might involve having assets put in trust, and sometimes it just involves some general advice to the veteran. Hey, this is where you need to be, and these are some ways you can get there. So they can kind of make their own decisions, but sometimes they do need the legal help of formulating a trust to hold money, or divesting themselves of some assets in different ways. And that is actually, yes, what we can help with the most is the legal course of making sure they meet the qualifications by the VA regulations.
That's great. And so there's been talk about the veterans benefits versus Medicaid, and there's some misinformation out there. Can somebody have both of those things, or can they only have one or the other? So do you help coordinate veterans benefits, and you also do Medicaid planning?
That's exactly right. For the non-veterans, part of what we do is also Medicaid qualification and Medicaid planning, because that's another avenue to help offset the cost of, home care, assisted living, nursing home. That can be critical in getting the maximum amount of Medicaid benefits to help offset that. And, everybody's paid into these benefits, most of your lives, at least as long as you've been working. And, you need to also be able to make sure you follow the Medicaid rules to get that maximum amount of benefits. And frequently they also require income and asset limitations tests for those benefits. And so we'll do similar planning. Now, unfortunately, the regulations are completely different. So we'll do similar planning for the Medicaid clients that we have come in to make sure they maximize the benefits. And that's kind of what I say when I'm talking to people. We're there to help you maximize the use of your government benefits. Sometimes we can help, sometimes we can't, and sometimes people are just going to qualify from the outright, and that's great too. But we do what we can for those people that are right on the edge normally, that might not qualify outright, but can have a little bit of planning put in place, and then in a short amount of time, or somewhere in the near future, we can get them to be qualified under the regulations and do everything the right way. And that's a big benefit normally for the families, because a lot of times the burden will fall onto the loved ones to, help chip in for mom or dad in that health care, because, it can be a significant expense at times.
Absolutely. And it seems like the costs just keep going up and up all the time. And so people need all the help they can get. So I'm glad that you're there to do that. And I know that Tina is a really good resource for people when maybe your law firm, isn't able to help a person in a particular way, or maybe you can. But in addition to that, I know Tina comes in as a community outreach and resource person to say, hey, look, this is something else you can do. Tina, why don't you talk about your job, your role as part of the Spinks Law Firm, and how you contribute to the benefit of the clients?
Sure. Thanks, Marcia. My role is really twofold: client services and community outreach. And when we talk about client services, it's really, in support of, what their needs are, what they're looking to accomplish. After Ed speaks with them in regards to if it's assisted living, if it's senior living, communities, nursing homes. Sometimes they're just not sure, and there's a vast amount of different communities and living situations within the community, and they're just not sure where to begin. And so I've been in the marketplace here for 20 plus years in a relationship building sense, and have pretty strong relationships with these different facilities, communities, the community resources in general as well. And when someone comes to us and says, I'm looking, I have this need, I'm going to need to have a placement for my loved one, be it memory care, be it assisted living, I'm not sure where to go. I offer, and I bring a value to them and the family is, here's some facilities that I know of that might be able to be a support, might be a good placement, might be a good fit for the family and for the resident to be in the prospect. And so I make that connection for the families. And I look at this as a warm handoff, so that they're not just cold calling. I contacted the facility and said, hey, I might have somebody, here's, they're going to be calling you to set up a tour, come see your building, meet you, see if this is a fit. And that's very valuable, because again, it's very overwhelming and daunting at times when you have all these other decisions that you're making or that you need to make and you're not sure where to begin. So I feel like my time here in the sense of directly in our larger Tampa Bay market has been one where I can offer that support and guidance and help them to make those decisions when they're ready. And then the other half of what I do is truly community outreach. It's continuing to build on those relationships that I have. I'm seeking out new relationships. So much has changed with the pandemic that we've had to pivot. And in that sense, it's learning how to educate different partners in the community, clients, educate the public in general about what we do, how we can help them, how we like to be an option for them when their discussion occurs around elder law and estate planning and special needs. And so in that sense, those two facets of what I'm offering is very supportive of Ed and the legal side of this. And it also is very supportive of the family and the residents to be, the prospects. And I look at this as a way of us partnering with the community, but being, working together for the outcome, for the best outcome for the families.
Absolutely. You do have a lot of experience in the community. You've worked in different areas of healthcare. Do you want to just mention a few of those? I know home health was one of them.
Yes. I started my career in practice management. I wore an operations hat, so to speak. And I kind of fell into business development because the private practice that I was working with needed somebody to go out and work with insurance companies. And as I got to develop that and work closer with assisted living facilities, I really understood hey, there's a great opportunity to market what our value we bring, understand how we can be a partner at the table, how we can wear a business hat as well as an operations hat, and be supportive to get the best outcome for the practice. And from there, I ended up moving into hospital management and then also into home care. And when I took the position with home health care, I really, found a niche for myself, and I enjoyed it immensely because it gave me the opportunity to provide outreach, to provide education regarding different services that we were providing and that we could provide. And there were times when we couldn't provide the service for whatever reason, but I always felt like if it couldn't be us, then let me be the one that has the outsource to say, I can't do, but this person can, or this company can. And again, that warm handoff, that customer service aspect of it is so important. And when you're dealing with the selling a service or marketing of a service, it's really important that people feel that you're helping them even when you can't, but you're offering that extension of, well, I can't, but here's who can, and I'll make the call for you, or here's the information so that you don't have to go and search and look it up. And that was very valuable. And I found in the same sense, meeting new people, understanding what social services did, what a case manager did, why the physician, was needing to, see the patient or the family, and versus just talking on the phone. It really became an opportunity for me to excel and promote, my services and the education that the company was providing, but also for me to engage and to build those relationships, which are just critical. Again, this is a relationship business, and really important that, people know us, they trust us, they see us as a source of information, as a source of education, and part of the solution, for their problem.
Well, I love the fact that you were in hospice for a while, home health, all of this, these areas. So what caregivers, what families are going through. You've been on the other side of it. And I think that's very, very important, that a good value that you do add, because when you're talking with families, they need your help. They need expertise. They need a full rounded, not just an answer for one thing, but let's look at my whole life. Let's look at the big picture, and you're able to provide that for them. So I think that's wonderful. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about elder law, estate planning, what that means, and what you should know. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Community. Arden Courts has about 50 assisted living memory care communities throughout the United States, and 10 of them are here where I am in Florida. Arden Courts is a leader when it comes to memory care. When someone can't live at home, maybe the caregiver can't take care of them anymore, maybe they don't have a caregiver, whatever the reason is, Arden Courts can help. They have been in memory care from the beginning, 30 years ago, with the awesome design and expertise and experience to help you help your loved ones. And they help in lots of ways. Not only do they help with assisted living for your loved one, but they help you as a caregiver with support groups, with lots of educational opportunities, just like this program. Also, they are offering today this special book. It's called The 36-Hour Day. This is a wonderful resource for caregivers. If you don't have this book, it's yours absolutely free just because you're watching or listening to this program today. All you have to do to get this book is send an email to delray@arden-courts.com. That's DELRAY at arden-courts.com. Tell them that you heard about this free offer on the Caregiver Solution Info Show and that they would be able to send you this book absolutely free just by giving them your name, address, and telephone number. This is a wonderful resource. It is something that caregivers can refer to on a topic-by-topic issue, or they can read it front to back when they have time. It is just highly recommended, written by Dr. Peter Rabins and Nancy Mays. So get this book or get it for someone that you know that could benefit from this, and send an email to delray@arden-courts.com. And now we're back to our show. Today, my special guests are from the Spinks Law Firm in the Tampa area, Florida, and Ed Spinks and his lovely wife, Tina Spinks, are joining us today, and we're talking about elder law. We talk about all things that can help caregivers. And Spinks Law Firm, they specialize in elder law, VA benefits, Medicaid, special needs trust, guardianship, and estate planning. So Ed, before the break, you were talking about you were working with the in the military with the armed services and helping them have estate plans, which was really interesting to me because I never really thought about the soldiers or sailors going out of the country off to war needing an estate plan. So why don't you tell everybody in general what elder law is, and then who needs an estate plan and what age should somebody start planning?
Sure, thanks a lot. And you know, you were just talking about memory care, and you know, that just drives home because probably half the people, you know, that I interact with or the families of them, you know, are those patients with an early diagnosis of memory care. And, you know, it explains why estate planning is so important. And so from the estate planning perspective, we like to say those are the pre-needs things that everybody knows they need to get in order, but everybody procrastinates to do so. So the number one thing I talk about all the time is powers of attorney. Get these powers of attorney in place, because it seems like if you can get that in place early on and have that there, everything kind of flows from there, because a power of attorney will designate somebody else to be able to do things on your behalf. And there's a lot of different kinds. There's a healthcare power of attorney. So if you're incapacitated, somebody can make healthcare decisions for you. But there's also a financial side power of attorney. And this is a durable power of attorney, so it works even when you're incapacitated. And that designates a person, a loved one who's trusted, who can open bank accounts for you, form trust, revise gifts of assets, sell property, buy property, rent property. They can do all these things on your behalf. And I can't tell you how extremely important that is down the road. But not to avoid your question, just that hit me when we were talking about memory care, that these power of attorney are so important. So estate planning can be done anytime. I had a good example about the young Marines going overseas. Some of them have children here, and we talk about powers of attorney. One thing I didn't realize early on is all these kids going to school, the school requires both parents to make decisions on things. And so the parents staying behind would have to have a power of attorney for making school choice decisions, to put them in school, to take them out of school, to do these different things. So that was a interesting need for a power of attorney for a young family with a young child, and that's why it's important, when you get to that, even at a young age, you're getting married, having children, buying houses, all these major life events are times when you want to look at your estate plan. Do I have a will in place? Is it enough to cover? There's a lot of other financial aspects that I don't cover, but we talk about things such as life insurance and pensions, and how you're going to take care of the kids down the road. And as you know, we have Tina and I have a child with special needs, and so when you're in that situation, that has a whole nother planning aspect to it. So you need to plan for that, for the future, and for all children, for their educational future. Should you not be around, how is that going to play out down the road? How do you want it to play out down the road? So that's kind of the early decisions. And then we run the gamut to the later decisions, and it's usually a family member. What happens when you have a loved one, a mom, dad, grandma, grandpa that, has this early onset dementia or diagnosis of Alzheimer's. You got to start getting that plan in place, but you got to be quick. You got to get in, because things can happen, things can change, and if it hasn't been planned for before, you just want to be out in front of it, because the alternative is just not good. If you don't have that power of attorney in place, you don't have somebody to be able to make decisions and do things on your behalf, you're going to have to go to court and get a guardianship form to do it, and it just adds extra time and money. Power of attorney are generally simple documents that you can get done, versus going to a court where there's other lawyers appointed. There's got to be multiple doctors make determinations, and all these things have a cost to them and take time. So normally that's why I really harp on those powers of attorney, getting those done early and getting them in place. I'm sorry, I probably got off your question a little bit, but that's one of my soapbox items that I got to jump on.
No, you know what? We talk about that all the time for caregivers, to get those legal documents. But you mentioned a lot of people procrastinate. Why are some of the reasons that you've heard of people procrastinating? Are they just afraid, or they don't trust family, or they don't think something's going to happen to them? What do you hear?
A little bit of all that. I think a lot of it is not wanting to address the situation or face the situation. It's not always a pleasant conversation to sit down with your wife and say, hey, I want you to be my power of attorney. Should I, be incapacitated for some reason? This came up a lot, I'm sorry, due to COVID. Excuse me. And you saw a lot of people going on ventilators and being incapacitated for a short amount of time. And so it did, I will say, motivate a lot of people to have that conversation, because they saw other people, if they can't operate or function for a month or 6 weeks or 2 months, how are things going to be done? How are bills getting paid? How are decisions being made? Like I told you, everything from the basic stuff, like how's the kid, assigned from one school to another, to the more complex things, like you need to sell your property to pay some bills. How's that going to be done if one spouse isn't available? It adds a unique perspective to it. And so, when they hear other stories and hear other people, it kind of motivates people to get it done. And that's a lot of the pushback, just the difficulty in having that self-actualization that, hey, one day you might not be able to function for yourself. But, we try to help, and we try to remind them of that. And I think, too, it's a lot of things that people don't also think of, just the examples I gave. It can be the basic things that got to be done every day. If you take yourself out for a month, how's that going to be done? And then how's your spouse going to have authority? And I say spouse, but it can be anybody. So how's the other person that you want to designate going to have the authority to do that? They need some documents put in place.
Absolutely. And it's never too soon to do that. Unfortunately, this past weekend I was on vacation over in Fort Myers, and ran into a nice couple of two ladies by the pool and chatted with them, had a nice conversation, and they were checking out, or the one lady was checking out, and she was frantic, and we said, "What's wrong?" Well, her lady friend, who was about 50, this other lady was probably 70, like her mom, maybe an aunt, had a heart attack. They were just walking down the sidewalk and had a heart attack and collapsed and had to go to the hospital out of town. And she had no family there. Nobody had POA. And I don't know what happened because I don't know them, but that was a perfect example of, anything can happen to anybody at any time. So people really, really need to get these documents in place. And if somebody chooses somebody to have their power, and later they change their mind, can that be changed also legally? Is that a big deal to change that document if someone changes their mind?
Sure, and we talk about that. One thing I always say, hey, we're not carving these documents in granite. They're not written in stone. If you change your mind tomorrow, it can be changed. And there's different processes depending on what the document is, how it can be changed. But even your last will and testament, the final document that people are going to see, that can be changed up until the day you die. So certainly these powers of attorney, if circumstances change and you don't want the person you designated to have that power anymore, you can pull that back, designate somebody else, and adapt to those changing circumstances. I know I didn't talk too much about it, but I don't want to be too focused on powers of attorney. You also need the complete plan, which would include a will and a trust, depending on your situations. You want to make sure you have all those documents. We generally do them together in a package, but you want to have all those documents put in place so it's an entire plan, while you're alive, if you become incapacitated, and finally after your death, to make sure your family is taken care of, all the way through.
So Ed, you mentioned last will and testament. Explain what's the difference between that and a living will. We didn't talk about a living will. Can you explain what a living will is?
Sure, absolutely. Now, that's a great question, and another kind of pet peeve of mine that I hate the language that we use to talk about living wills and last will and testament or will, because it's just very confusing because the terms are so similar. So a living will, one way I like to it uses the word living, so it's decisions while you're alive. What that medical care you want if you're in a permanent vegetative state. It's kind of an end-of-life condition. So, how much mechanical means do you want to be kept alive if you're in a permanent vegetative state? No chance of recovery. And everybody in Florida, we always go back to the Terry Schiavo situation and kind of remind people of that. And then people kind of get it, oh, yeah, I understand, because that was a big deal and everybody saw it on the news at some point. Compared to a last will and testament, that doesn't come into play until after you die, and that is designating who's going to gather your assets and how your assets are going to be distributed to your heirs that you designate. But I want to step one step back and talk about the living will. That also goes hand in hand with the healthcare power of attorney. Because with a healthcare power of attorney, that person you designate is going to have to make those end-of-life decisions for you. And it's just a comfort, for them to see that you had already made that decision in your living will of what you wanted. And it's not just them making a determination of what they think you would want. They can see it in your hand and signed by you that, hey, this is what you want in this particular circumstance. So, I tell everybody, hey, if you're doing a healthcare power of attorney, always do a living will and make your wishes known ahead of time.
Absolutely. That can cause a lot of problems when there's no living will, when maybe siblings are arguing about what mom or dad really would want. And it does cause some problems. So we want to get all that taken care of ahead of time. So thank you for explaining that. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a special needs trust and what that is and what you need to know about that. So we'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're back, and my guests today are Ed and Tina Spinks of the Spinks Law Firm, and we are talking about everything that you need to know when it comes to elder law. Ed is an elder law attorney specializing in all kinds of areas, including estate planning, guardianship, Medicaid, veterans benefits. Veterans benefits is near and dear to your heart, and I know that you do a lot of that in your practice. But Tina, let's talk a little bit about why you all have a special interest in special needs trust and what that is and why it's important to you and why it touches your heart and affects the way that you all do your practice.
So we have a special interest because we have a child with Down syndrome. So he is 10 years old. His name is William. He truly is, one of the best things that's probably happened to our family in the sense of just the joy and the enthusiasm, and everyone is an equal to him. And he just loves life and is truly the center of many, many folks. And when you have a child with special needs, an intellectual disability such as Down syndrome, or, it could be any type of disability, you have to, as a parent, think differently along the lines of, how am I going to take care of this child once they turn 18? What does that look like? Who will take care of my child, or as an adult then once they turn 18? If I'm gone, if I pass before they do, or who would I trust to understand that you have to have patience, you have to have understanding and kindness. And when it comes to, making those decisions as a parent, you really want to make sure that you've thought through, what does that look like? You've vetted your close family members. It's not for everybody. Some people may think that they, are understanding and accepting, and then when it comes time, it's it can be a little bit more work than they anticipate. And it's important for Ed and I, when we chat with people and talk about special needs and what a special needs trust is, to understand, what does that look like? How do you arrive at, putting these documents in place? How do you, what are some of the decision-making steps that need to be done so that you're doing the best for your child, you're doing the best for yourself, which you think, you want somebody that you're going to ask to step in for you should you not be there. And, it's a different walk, and it's a different perspective when you are the parent, and Ed being an attorney as well, being able to share a perspective that is very, just not even just so much as it's just a perspective of I've been there, I understand, I'm walking that journey with you. And, being able to share, understand and be supportive. And a lot of times it's a struggle. Early on, it can be hard to accept. And I speak honestly from that. My first year as a parent, with William, it was hard for me. I struggled a little bit. I tried to understand. I, listened to others that I thought were experts, but ultimately William showed us that he can do so many things, and we celebrate him every day. And once you get to a point where you realize this is going to be just like every other child, it may just be a part where I need to be more patient or more understanding, or I may need to do a couple extra steps, or we may need some different type of support from family and friends. And you'd be surprised at times that people will step up. And when those people do, you want to say those are the ones that might be, a good, a partner in the care, the oversight, the decision making from a financial, from a healthcare, perspective, that you feel that's the best outcome for my child should I not be here, God forbid. But Ed has really been able to provide understanding to people that this is why you need a special needs trust, and what does that look like? How do you determine if I want my child to go to school past 18, if I want my child to work, what do I need to do so that they can maybe have a savings account? There's all sorts of things nowadays that through the government and laws that have been available, and the ABLE Act is one of those opportunities that allows families to plan and to be able to provide some support that in the past may not have been. So I find that we look towards helping families understand how a special needs trust and special needs decision making, when it comes to legal needs and documents, what does that look like? And that's where Ed really can, provide that insight and expertise.
Anything you want to add to that, Ed?
Hey, there's not much I can add to that. I mean, she hit the nail on the head. No, our son William, yeah, he's actually an outstanding little kid, and so he does great things, and he's done great things for us, teaching us a lot of lessons, especially patience, like she said. I'm only kidding. No, special needs planning is a lot like any other planning, except for it's accelerated. Like we talked about, hey, when's the time to plan? And I mentioned those major life events, weddings, divorce, situations changing. And a lot of times that ends up, we do will planning, like we talked about using the last will and testament. We didn't talk about too much, but there's trust planning, and trust planning can be used in a lot of different ways, not only to maximize your government benefit, but to protect your loved ones down the road and make sure that your financial future and their financial future is managed in the way in which you want it to go, be it protecting them from maybe themselves if they've had a little problem with drugs, alcohol, gambling, something like that. You can make sure that money's held in trust to protect them. Or maybe you're worried about a spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse. You can put that money in trust to, protect your child and keep it from maybe getting into a ex-spouse's hands down the road that, may not be the best way that you want your inheritance to be spent down the road. So we do that with trust planning, to protect your family members down the road. And trust planning is accelerated when you have a child with special needs, because most generally those children are going to need some assistance, be it healthcare assistance from the government, particularly when they turn 18. They're going to be entitled to some benefits, normally just based on the fact because they're disabled adults at that time. And they also still may need the supervision and guardianship of a parent. So at 18, parents, sometimes are surprised to learn they don't get to tell their child, even if their child's suffering with a disability, what to do. From a law perspective, they're an adult. But there's some good mechanisms put in place in Florida, particularly something called guardian advocacy. It's a more fast-tracked way to keep guardianship over your child when they turn 18, so you can still be there making medical decisions with them, getting their medical information. Important, make IEP decisions, which is an individualized education plan, because they can go to school after they're 18. So if they're not done, mom or dad probably wants to be there making some educational decisions, even if they're 19 or 20. And still in the school system. So that's a great thing that's, I say recently, but been around a few years now to help out. And now something that's really more new is this, Tina mentioned the ABLE Act. That's a federal act that allows people with disability to save some money and not be knocked off government programs. A lot of the government programs have a $2,000 asset cap. So if you got more than $2,000, you would lose your ability to get these healthcare benefits or maybe some employee vocational assistance. And so the ABLE Act allows them to save that money and provide for the child's future.
Oh, that's awesome. So much great information. Life can be hard, life can be complicated, but I'm so glad that you are there to help untangle it and get it all straightened out. And not only do you guys talk the talk, but you walk the walk. And I really appreciate you being with us today. Unfortunately, our time is up, so take a minute to tell everybody how they can contact you if they would like to have a consult or talk with you about a specific issue. How do they contact you?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's life can be challenging. So what we like to say, hey, it's our family helping your family. We got offices in Tampa, and we got offices by appointment in Brandon and Land O'Lakes. So we serve really the whole greater Tampa Bay area. So anybody that needs us can check us out at www.spinkslawfirm.com or just give us a call at 813-651-1233. Be happy to help you.
Okay, say that phone number one more time.
Sure. 813-651-1233.
All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you for being with us today. Thanks for all your expertise and sharing with everybody. I wish you well, much success, and thanks again. I hope I see you again soon.
Thank you, Marsha.
And thank you, everybody, for being with us today and joining us on caregiversolutions.info show. Stay tuned next week.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marsha Teal. Join us next week as Marsha, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.
The opinions expressed on the